Good morning and welcome to Essential Ingredients, guys. It's your friend Justine, your weekly host that brings you lots of new founders and innovators in the space around the impact of food on our healthcare, lifestyle, beauty, fashion, and the planet. And today we have Cole, and Cole is the founder of Pila. So welcome, Cole.
Hello, Justine. It's great to be
So
here.
great to have you here. I'm excited to learn about what you've created here, the inspiration behind it, and where you see it going. Accessible energy. So for those not familiar with Pila, would you just give them sort of the high level of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first I'll step back even before I talk about the product and talk about, the changing world that we're living in when it comes to energy. I think unfortunately more and more of us are getting hit with power outages and rising utility bills. It's kind of a mess out there right now. And as a student of this, we looking at it, we have the oldest power grid in the world. We built the very first electricity grid in the U.S., and now it's very old. And there are all kinds of things from fires on the West Coast to stronger storms that are knocking it out more and more. And that affects us, everyone, kind of across the country. And whether it's your internet going down or your food going bad in your fridge, we're having to figure out how to solve this. So there have been backup generators, gas-powered backup generators for a long time. In the past 10 years, we've seen these very premium smart home batteries come onto the market. I've worked in that space for a while, but Pila is aimed to be the more accessible alternative to that premium home battery, but at a price point that matches that off the shelf generator. So we are a smart backup battery that pairs with your essential appliances, your refrigerator, your window air conditioning unit, sump pump, the Wi-Fi in your den, you name it.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds really accessible. It sounds like it's attainable for the majority of the population and something that as global warming and as things evolve on the planet, we're really going to have a need for. I mean, I know that a lot of my neighbors have generators. I don't have a generator. I've often thought about, do we need a generator? What would that look like? How much does that cost? Is it running on gas? Is it running on power? All these different things. Between space and cost, there's lots of different factors to consider. So this sounds like a great solution. So, coming up with something like this, I'm sure there's a story behind it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, even before my professional career. I grew up in New Orleans,
Mhm.
and in 2025, 20 years ago, Hurricane Katrina, knocked out power and disrupted things way beyond that, for us. And from that moment onward, I kind of was a bit obsessed with these invisible systems that like literally keep the lights on and keep life running smoothly. And what it feels like when those systems kind of disappear in a moment. Studied engineering and had the opportunity to work at Tesla on the home battery product of Tesla
Mhm.
Powerwall and solar. And then for the last 4 years, I helped lead a product team at a company called Span,
Mhm.
who kind of innovated around this smart electrical panel concept, taking that fuse box circuit breaker panel and turning it into a full-fledged control device and computer. All of that's great, but the through line for me has always been, are my friends and family, outside of California, adopting the technology? Because this is
Right.
really smart stuff, but
Mhm.
you have to own the home, and
Mhm.
often it's a five-figure upgrade. You're talking $20,000 more, and a lot of that's labor and custom design. It's a big build out, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're getting a gas generator, it's a pretty expensive thing to do. So, the story is started with the question: how do we merge that intelligence with the kind of dominant product for backup power, which are these kind of antiquated old pull start gas generators that collect dust in the garage, and half the time they may not even work because you're supposed to maintain them and no one does. Blending that with the intelligence of these quiet, seamless, smart battery products. So that was the genesis of Pila, setting out to solve that mission. And the name is a bit of an homage to one of the kind of godfathers of this age, a guy named Alessandro Volta, an Italian guy. He's credited with making the first electrochemical battery. So batteries as we know it today. His innovation was stacking metal plates together, and that stack, or if you're an Italian, that pile, formed the first tabletop battery. And the story of how that battery was created, it was inspired by electric eels who have internal organs that are kind of stacked together. So I think there was something really, inspiring about
Mhm.
this story of, innovation, drawing lessons from nature. And for us, we are making smaller modular home batteries. So there was something about that tabletop device that also really stood out to us. And, we also thought it sounded nice.
And so you took a lot of your experience from what you did at Tesla, coupled with the experience you know about Katrina, and put that together and came up with this solution. So tell me about your experience in Tesla and what you did and how that directly related to what you were able to create.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, uh, what an incredible place to learn, right? Some of the smartest people I've ever met were working at Tesla at the time that I was there, and I had a really fun job of traveling around the globe. The U.S., Australia, Europe, Japan, and beyond, and working with electricians and
Mhm.
homeowners to take the new stuff that we were building at HQ and pilot it, understand kind of where the rubber meets the road, and
Right,
how we push the ball forward in this very regulated industry that's really safety focused and tends to be slow moving. But taking the fast moving kind of California startup or startup mindedness approach
right.
to it. Um, so really incredible learning, and Tesla kind of created the category of the modern smart home backup battery. For a long time there were these lead acid, think like car batteries that you could stack together with wires running everywhere, and it was a very niche thing. And what Tesla did was turn that into something that was architectural and significantly easier to install all in one box. But you know, Tesla and the folks that have come after them have largely been focused on single family owner occupied homes that are getting rooftop solar and adding a
Mhm.
battery at that time. And that's left out, a lot of small businesses, but also renters and condos, folks that live in, more urban areas or multi-unit buildings, and just, homeowners that aren't ready to spend $20,000 or more on that kind of upgrade when often it is just a handful of very important appliances and devices that you care about if you're coming at it from an outage mindedness. It's the fridge, maybe a sump pump, maybe some lights and outlets and your Wi-Fi. And we said, wait a minute, you can solve this by just going straight to those devices and making those the smart devices that are capable of protecting themselves. And suddenly, it's no longer a question of calling contractors and getting quotes and all of that. It's a question of getting a beautiful device delivered to your home and plugging it in.
I mean, you make it sound so simple. So right now you have the pre-market product. Talk to me about the pre-market product. Where are you with this and what are next steps with it?
Yeah, so we will be delivering products later this year to our early customers. We launched with a lot of fanfare at South by Southwest in Austin this past March, and the input from customers and market and technology partners has been tremendous. I think we've found that there's really we've struck a chord. I think for a long time people have seen the premium products and said maybe one day with my dream home, and we're happy that the message of hey, actually you don't have to wait, you can get this today, and self solve has really resonated. So we've had interest from almost 50 states at this point for pre-orders. We're allowing folks to reserve early units on our website, and we are working as hard as we can to go through that development process, which, as anyone who's built in the space knows, is very safety minded, and there's a lot of scrutiny that you have to go through to make sure this is a reliable thing that's going to last 5 and 10 years, and obviously be safe for the home and all the rest.
Of course, of course. It as I'm sitting here, I'm envisioning it. It's on top of the fridge or something behind the door. It's something that's easy to access, that the minute you lose your power, you can utilize. it's accessible to most. I mean, it's under $1,000. It's a few $100s, right?
So the market price is about the same as a nice pull start generator. It's $12.99. So that's the base unit, and you compare that to something like a whole home battery, which
Mhm.
is 25 upwards of $60,000. So we have a lot of work, to get it down to the point where every single household can afford it,
Mhm.
and we've got plans to do that. But out of the gate, we're excited to, at least bring the entry cost way down to the point where, you know, it's much more homes and businesses can
It
kind of
manages
access them.
the barrier to entry a little bit better,
Correct.
right? Yeah. So right now, when you go onto the website, you put down what, $99? It secures your spot. Is something like that, right?
You've got it. Yeah. So for folks who are already interested and willing willing to put their money down, it's a $99 refundable deposit to kind of get in on the early orders as we start shipping
So
later
it's
this year.
low risk, right? It's low risk is
Yeah,
what we're looking at.
absolutely.
And
You know,
so
and
if you think about the amount of times that we've lost power and the percentage that it's increased year over year, if we were to look back at years past and see how often the hurricanes come and how often the earthquakes come and how often the heat waves come that create power lines to go down. And there's other reasons they can go down, but let's just say we're looking at, a variety of these issues. What do we see as the uptick? How many more people is this affecting year over year?
yeah, I think most folks have probably keyed into the fact that it's going up, right? Outages are becoming a more common thing that we're dealing with, not only in the US, but abroad. I mean, Spain, several weeks ago, the entire country lost power.
Wow.
It's largely driven by weather events, right? So it's strong correlation between those big storms and fires and the number of people who are losing power every year. That's gone up. I mentioned kind of Katrina, that was 2005. In the entire decade of the 2000s, we had about a third of the $1 billion weather disasters that we've had in the last 3 years. So last 3 years, we've surpassed threefold that entire, previous decade. And it's not only fires in California and the West Coast, it's floods, it's storms, it's winter storms, windstorms. Most states are contending with this in some form or another.
It also, I mean, don't forget the elderly people that are hooked up to monitors or hooked up to machines or the surgeries that are going on or people that need all sorts of support as they get older or even just are sick. So, what an amazing thing you've innovated. And so, I'm curious when I think about batteries, I am curious about the sustainability of them and what happens to them afterwards. So, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
The easiest way for something to end up in a landfill is for it to be outdated in a year or two, the planned obsolescence problem. So, step one, you pick batteries that are really designed for ultra long life. And not all lithium ion batteries are created equal. If
Mhm.
you've owned a smartphone, you know that after a year or two, the thing doesn't really hold a charge. So,
Mhm.
that style of battery is really designed for a lot of fast charging and discharging and a short lifetime and really lightweight. We're using a different chemistry called lithium iron phosphate, LFP, 10-year cycle life, right? So this is designed to be very long lasting. On top of that, we built the software to get smarter over time, like your iPhone, so that
Mhm.
it doesn't become out of date, in 3 or 5 years time as the needs change for homes and businesses. And
Right.
then once the product has lived its useful life, how are you recovering the materials in those so that we have to dig fewer mines and the rest, and that comes down to good design and modular design so that disassembly is as easy as putting the thing together. So really that kind of full end-to-end design life is something our engineering team is incredibly focused on. And then, the expert level answer here too is our view is that if we put batteries more surgically in areas where they can be smarter, let's say next to your refrigerator, instead of in the equipment room or the garage, we can actually more judiciously provide power to that appliance, only what it needs, and cater to it, which means the size of the battery pack can actually come down as well. So to provide that same service, say, 30 plus hours of backup for an average refrigerator, while that might take a 15 kilowatt hour whole home battery, if you're also supplying to all kinds of unnecessary energy draws in the home, by being really focused on just what's most important to you and going room by room and appliance by appliance, we can actually kind of lower the total need for batteries created, dug out of the ground, and the rest, and like kind of take that stored energy a bit further. So all kinds of different angles here that we can look at that question.
So I love the whole beginning to the end. I mean, it's very thoughtful. It's thoughtful about the environment, it's thoughtful about the customer. You're making it accessible, you're giving them power, and you're thinking about what you can do with it at the end. So for those customers, though, that even $1,200, is a lot. Is there a way to get something subsidized, or is there a way to work with you, or do you have a program, let's say, that would help facilitate making it possible for those individuals that might not have what they need to get this?
Absolutely. Something we think about a lot. We really want to envision a world where everyone has this protection. No one is kind of literally left in the dark when
Mhm.
power outages occur. And of course, the people that are most at risk may not be the ones that have the ability to kind of buy these, new types of products. So the beautiful thing about what we're building is it's actually infrastructure, an infrastructure grade kind of design, which means uh, we have all kinds of partnerships in the works with utilities who are talking to us about offering this to their customers as a few extra dollars on their bill to help, spread out that cost. There are
Hypothetically, PG&E
right,
or
the large
Atlantic or
utilities and small, since they see their duty as providing reliable electricity to their customers, and they're working very hard, to try and make the power lines and generation kind of catch up with the need. But there are some really, innovative teams at those companies that are focused on solutions in the home too. So that's one example. Financing, another great option, and we'll have more to share on that, later this year.
And it also makes me think, like whether it's Katrina, or it's a hospital, right? Um, they need food to be able to eat because you can't survive without food, and you need health care, and that includes plugging it in. So you're really solving a problem that is only going to grow, in my mind, as we see global warming continuing to evolve each year and becoming more and more contributory to all the issues, whether it's flying or power outages.
We want to move fast and give people tools to put the power in their hands. And part of moving fast is lowering the cost. The other part is just designing solutions that work for more people. So we talked about the renters in addition to the owners. The story can't be, well, once we build all of the next generation of homes, they'll be smart solar enabled and backup battery capable. We've kind of got to think about, how do we adapt our existing homes and businesses for this, new reality that you're describing. And this isn't to say that there's no room for the premium, solutions that are professionally installed. Those are great if you can get them, but I think the last 10 years has showed us that, it's not quite the accessible mass market product that a lot of us want it to be. And again, that was our motivation in putting this product together.
So, as you're innovating because you're trying to solve this problem and make things more accessible, are there other products that you're thinking about innovating down the line to add to this?
Absolutely. Like a lot of people enter the kind of energy product conversation through backup power and resilience, because that's really when it hits you the hardest. But what I found is people are so receptive and interested to see the data in their home. Imagine getting like an Apple Watch for your entire home, where you can suddenly understand what's contributing to that power bill and what's being powered by clean energy sources and solar versus the grid and expensive electricity. It can be a little addicting for some of us. And our view is to build that ecosystem that's very data rich, and can, once you have these things in your home, they can do a lot more than just backup power. Take the fridge, for example. We can tell you if that refrigerator is on the fritz. We've all had the experience where you open the door and it's making a funny noise, and should I call somebody out? I don't know. How do we make that easier? How do we bring that answer to the forefront? Hey, can we help you call a technician out? This thing's going to fail in the next 30 days. Or even small things like the door was left open. once you've got these smart systems sort of in place, they can make your life easier in so many ways. So
Mhm.
that's a broad answer, but for us, it looks like more products in our portfolio, more software features that help people understand their energy. And again, it's all about putting you in control and understanding what's going on, in your dojo.
So, as a founder that innovated this and built this off your experience at Tesla, what were some of the things, some of the resources, or rather skills that you needed that maybe you didn't have that you had to surround yourself with? Could you share a little bit about that and how you brought those folks in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this founding Pila has been such a story of kind of community and coming together, and I've been just lucky in my career to be surrounded by wonderful mentors and people who are smarter than I am to help through the process. So drawing on that community from whether it's ex Tesla, Span, Apple, Amazon, all these different tech companies, and on the design side, some really really sharp folks when it comes to how to think about brand design, both consumers and businesses. Um, and I think that the lesson here is never discount a connection. You never know where the person who's going to make the biggest difference on your next thing is going to come from. And I'm very grateful to have those folks in my network supporting in one way or another, kind of on the Pila mission, from advisory, kind of business development to in the weeds design, app development to kind of partnerships and how to think about scaling a business from the earliest stages to making massive impact, with larger customers and broader geographies.
So it's a year and a half, right? A year and a little less than a year and a half. So, in order to make that happen, to those listeners that are tuning in, to those viewers that are watching, and they ask, okay, what do I need to do to make something like that happen?
And I said it before, the first thing is just get started. Don't be your own biggest barrier, and don't be afraid to learn and fail. And I know this is advice that a lot of people give, but I think it bears repeating, because
Right.
it's easy to want to shield your idea from the world until you feel that it's perfect. But you're going to learn so much faster if you build something scrappy, get it out there, learn, iterate, and be open to feedback. So number one would be get started. Number two, if you're building in your domain, you've been working in a space for a while, like, trust your conviction. It's easy, as kind of as a corollary to the first one. It's easy to hear a lot of negatives and sort of doubts and why hasn't this been done before. But I think having your own kind of center of belief guide you forward, and taking on the feedback that you have and sort of assembling it into your mental model is a real skill,
Mhm.
and not getting downtrodden in the process. And I think that takes us to number three, which is be surround yourself with people that can help orient the path, people that you trust to give advice, not only in, let's say like a technical area, but also, I've benefited a lot from just general kind of mentorship and
Mhm.
career, the kind of career life area as well.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really helpful. Um, and I've been thinking a lot about, because I get asked questions all the time, right? About, so when you're pitching your business, what do you recommend? PowerPoint or this? And my reaction is always like, be authentic, be genuine, have the founder there, because people want to invest in founders. Um, so for your experience, I'd love to know how you went about this and what you found to be most useful.
Yeah, it's fun. Again, no secrets, but I think your point about being authentic is ultimately the answer. For some people, they're very visually minded, and spending the time to put together those visuals helps tell the story. For others, they're wordsmiths and they can tell a story, verbally with no problem and paint that picture. Just don't feel that you have to conform to some, rigid way of doing things.
Mhm.
Think about it as, how would you describe it to a friend or family?
So, what role, as you're pitching this to people, does the impact on the environment play?
You know, it's it's something we think a lot about internally, all the way down to our packaging design, and we talked about the cells. But in our specific kind of product category, it's probably not the number one, two, or three. We're really proud of the work that we've done to make sure that this product kind of is responsibly designed. But for many people, like if they're running a generator in an outage, it's kind of lower down on that need. To your point, they're powering, the medical equipment and the fridge, and you know, they're spewing fumes, but they're also breathing those fumes, and they're kind of taking these affordances, if you will, on the environmental side already. So just by virtue of kind of having the clean battery, it's a better product for the environment, but more importantly, it's just a better user experience. You're not outside running an extension cord in the rain trying to refuel a generator, and running this noisy thing. So it's there, but it's behind the scenes. Right. And if you're refueling it from electricity, most of the time, that's going to be way cleaner than, a low efficiency.
Well, with that being said, so what role does that play selling it to the consumer online, which is what you're doing right now, right? Talk to me about the education that's going into this. And I'm curious, are people curious? Are they asking? Or is this not even part of the conversation? They just really want to solve a problem.
It's a little bit of both. I think that's the fun part about creating a new market. You have people coming in with different levels of knowledge.
Mhm.
So some of our early customers may even own a power wall or, a whole home generator system, and they're used to thinking about all kinds of different power questions for their home. So they know exactly what they're looking for and have very pointed questions. On the other hand, because this product's so accessible, we're talking to folks who may not be kind of tech native and have a lot of basic questions just around how does it work. Okay, so I plug it in, then what? What kind of information do I get? How does it, contemplate security and safety and all of these things? So we're kind of seeing it from all angles, and it's been a really fun thing to put together the simple answers for all of these questions. Because again, we want to provide all the detail that people need to make the purchase decision and understand the product and be excited. But there's always a balance between giving the full engineering answer and giving the human answer.
I think it's important that it gets people thinking, and it's important for us to tell them what you've done so that they can make the best decision for themselves, right?
Absolutely.
I
And
mean,
this discovery process, a lot of like learning,
yeah.
and we're most of us, let's be honest, don't think about energy and electricity on a day-to-day basis. We're not saying that everyone needs to, but in a world where outages and high bills and the rest, like to the extent that you want to engage, you can start to make an impact on those things. You can lower your bills, you can protect your family, and we want to give people the, understandable, digestible answers and product solutions, that can help them get started. Because again, that the default way of building with these sort of expensive contractor led $20,000 system, I mean, the knowledge gap there, it's incredibly overwhelming. So in making this, battery system that we're building more modular and accessible and plug and play, we're kind of adapting the messaging to make it also more digestible, modular, kind of learn as you go.
So are we looking at this on an app or something?
There's a screen on the device, so app, absolutely, but we went even further than that because we understand that there's kind of app fatigue in the smart home
Mhm.
space. For some folks, the app is great. For others, they may want to engage with it only occasionally. So we have done our best to make the information as accessible as possible. It also connects into other smart home systems, whether it's Google Home, Alexa.
Awesome. Cole, thank you so much. If our guests that are tuning in by YouTube or our podcast want to learn more, what is the best place to go? How can they find out more, possibly even pre-register for their battery?
Easiest way is our website. So it's www.pila.energy. You can also go to pilaenergy.com. We post regular updates on our blog on our website. And they can also find us on the socials on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram as Pila Energy.
Awesome. Cole, thank you so much. I want to thank our guests who tuned in today. I want to thank those listeners because we've got such a great community. And without this community, who are we talking to? So really, it's built up of the amazing guests like yourself and our wonderful listeners. So I want to just take a moment and thank you both, you, Cole, and our listeners, for joining me today. It's my pleasure. And for those that maybe want to check out our video cast because you're listening to the podcast, don't forget our channel on YouTube is at Essential Ingredients. And for those that want to listen to it on the podcast because they watch it on YouTube, it's Essential Ingredients with Justine, anywhere you listen to your Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. And